everyone, Aisha here. So this is a story that I wanted to talk about for a little while now. I saw this story come out a couple of weeks ago, and honestly, I forgot to just go and just record a video with my thoughts about Kim Kardashian saying that sometimes she cries herself to sleep because of the difficulties and challenges with being a single mom. And so there were a few things in there that I thought were interesting, so I wanted to share those things with you today. And so one of the things that I was really surprised about is her saying, right, that she cries herself to sleep because she's a single mom. Because I think like many of you or many of us, sometimes we tend to think that if we just have more help, if we have more money, things would be smoother, right? And we see someone like Kim Kardashian who has the money, who has the help, who has the nannies, right? Who has a great support system, who still feels like, the loneliness of being a single mom. She feels the heaviness of being the single parent in the household, being the disciplinarian and being all things to her children. So I thought that that was really interesting because I think sometimes in the midst of our journey, I think sometimes we can get caught up on if I had this or if this was going like this or if that was going right, then things would be better. And we see her, she has the career, she has the finances, she has the support, but yet she's still dealing with many of the things that we all deal with on a day-to-day basis. I know I've actually recorded a video in the past talking about the loneliness and isolation that I feel at times by being a single mom, not necessarily because I am physically alone, right? Because I have, amazing family, amazing church family, and my kids to surround me and amazing friends, but that isolation that you can feel as a single mom, thinking that no one understands what you're going through. And having that responsibility, even though you have a good support system, everything stops with you. And that can be a heavy load to carry, right? Which is why you need Jesus. Because Jesus says, take my yoke upon you because it's light and it'll give you rest. And so I wanted to start off by saying that is that we have to be able to focus on the now and what we have instead of always looking to if this happens, then things will get better. We need to focus on where we're at now, right? And then, of course, always striving to improve, but we can't live in the future of if something happens, then things will get better. And so one of the things that she said was that the days are long and the years are short. And someone gave her that advice to help her to keep perspective. And this is something that I've heard oftentimes. I remember one time I was in the grocery store. My kids were having a meltdown literally in the middle of the store. And a kind mom, just walked up to me and just like, I know it seems hard right now, but the days are long and the years are short. And it's true because sometimes when you're in the midst of your everyday routine, especially if your kids are little, right? You're changing diapers, feeding, right? Trying to get sleep schedules together. As they grow older, you're managing school schedules, extracurricular activities, making sure that you're lovingly disciplining your kids so that way you can shape them into who they're supposed to be, which is a lot. And so sometimes in those days, especially, and if you have multiple kids, then you're navigating conflicts at times between the kids. And so sometimes those days are long, but at the end of the day, we have 18 years, right? To be able to shape our kids before they grow out and then grow up and then they're, out of high school and everything and moving on to college. And so that time flies past. I know my kids are 7 and I remember giving birth to them. It seems like just yesterday. And I think that when in the midst of things, when things are difficult, when we're not getting enough rest, when we're focused on, what we thought life would be like in terms of parenting, but it's different than what we expected. I think that it's good to keep that into perspective to say the days are long. Yes, they are, but the years are short, and to maximize each and every day that we have with our kids because it's truly a gift and it's truly a blessing. And the second thing, I guess we're on number 3 now, that I thought was really interesting about this interview is she talked about her morning routine and what she does to prepare her for the day. And so I thought that that was interesting as well. And she said pretty much do something. And one of the things I learned was to do something that'll help prepare you for the day. And so one of the things that I used to do, and it led me to be really stressed out, overwhelmed, short fuse yelling at my kids was I used to wake up at the same time as my kids. And so this was, before they were in school and everything. I used to wake up when they woke up because I wanted to maximize my sleep because I was dealing with exhaustion. But when I realized that when I woke up, when they woke up, I was literally jumping into the chaos. I was jumping into someone crying because they needed attention, or jumping into, my kids when they were old enough to walk and able to walk, like, wait, mom, hey, wake up. And I didn't have time to gather my thoughts or prepare myself for the day. And I ended up very stressed out and not as patient as I could have been. And so what I started to do, which can sound very cliche, was I started to wake up before my kids. And just that simple change of waking up before my kids, I, read the Bible, I journaled, I prayed, I did something for me, right? That allowed me to mentally prepare to start the day instead of just jumping into the day and dealing with whatever came with that day, right? And so that's one thing that I thought was interesting, and I would want to suggest that to you. It doesn't have to be, hours before your kids wake up, but do something that helps to prepare you for the day so you're not just running into the day and not having time to be able to mentally prepare before you start. And then this other things is there are some days that you cry. And so she talked about how she cries herself to sleep. And literally in your single motherhood journey, there will be some days that you cry. You might cry because you feel like a failure. You might feel like you didn't get enough done in the day. You might feel like you didn't perfectly balance work and motherhood, which you're never going to get it right perfectly, right? You just do the best that you can and look for ways to improve. And but there will be some days that you cry. There might be some days that you cry from loneliness. There might be some days that you cry from being overwhelmed. There might be some days that you cry from exhaustion. I remember one time, and I think I recorded a video about this, how I was playing with my kids one day. They were toddlers, and all of a sudden this wave of sadness came over me, and I walked upstairs, sat on the steps, and started weeping because I felt alone. I felt isolated. I felt no one understood me. And there were days where, I was just dealing with the pressure of the finances. And I remember it was so random. I just saw somebody I knew. I literally wept on her shoulder because I was trying to figure out how I was going to balance everything financially. And it was so stressful. It was so stressful. And I just didn't know what to do. And the only thing left that I had in me was to weep. And then I apologized because I'm not a crier. I was just like, oh, I'm sorry. That was really random. But you hugged me and I started crying. Right. And so there are some times that we cry. And that's okay. It doesn't make you a bad mom. It doesn't mean you don't like your kids. It doesn't mean that you hate your career. It doesn't mean, that you're a horrible person. It just means that it's a lot of responsibility on ourselves. And sometimes we cry because we're not meant to handle it alone. Parenting is meant to be with a mom and a dad. And when you don't have both, it can be hard, which is also why it's super important to be able to build a support system of people who you can trust. And so I thought that was interesting as well. And also when I talked about the other thing, do something that helps prepare you for the day because that will help you mentally. And the other thing that she talked about in the interview, which I thought was really good, she said, you're never going to be ready for kids, but you can do it. And I hear this all the time for women who are pregnant and who are single moms. They said the timing is bad, the timing is bad, the timing is bad. And I thought that was fascinating that Kim Kardashian said you're never going to be ready. But you can do that. I thought that was so practical because I think sometimes we think that we need to have all of this stuff together and then motherhood is going to be easy, right? She had the marriage. She had the career. She had the support. She had the finances, right? And even she didn't feel ready. And so I think that what this teaches us is that we just need to understand where we're at, right? And make the best of our situation. Of course, looking to figure out how you can continue to grow in it, but to find contentment and satisfaction and opportunities to be able to find joy in the midst of everything. Knowing that you're never going to be ready. When I tell you I was not ready to have kids, especially twins, I never babysat anyone in my entire life. I literally had to learn from the nurse after I gave birth, how to change a diaper and how to properly hold my child, because that wasn't something I did. I just wasn't around babies. I never babysat anybody. And God gifted me with twins. So I didn't feel ready. I had just quit my job to become a full-time entrepreneur. I was not ready. But just like Kim Kardashian said in that interview, but you can do it. I'm telling you this too. There is like a supernatural equipping that happens that allows you to do it, because you're not parenting in your own strength. You're doing it in the strength of the Lord. So I want to reiterate that. I can't say this enough. You're never going to be ready, but you can do it. And then this is another point that I learned from this interview. She said, she was talking about, despite the hard stuff, there is joy. She talked about how amazing, it's one thing she said, so like when you're in it, I mean, especially when they're babies and you're feeding and there's madness going on, it's like full on madness, but it's the best chaos though. And I love that quote. She called it the best chaos. And I think that that's an amazing perspective, because even though things might seem like, she described sometimes feeling like there's a tornado going through her house, but then she calls it the best chaos. So even during the hard moments of parenting, even during the hard moments of, raising babies, even though through the hard moments of teenagers and all of those different things that come with parenting, there is still joy in it. And we have to find the joy at every stage, at every day. We have to find the joy, because when we focus on the joy, that's when we have the right perspective, and we're continuing to be renewed, and we're leaning on Jesus, who is the one who can give us joy, surrendering our parenting to him, and allow him to guide us through the hard stuff, and allow him to fill us with his joy. And the last thing, I think we're on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 7. So the last thing that I learned from this interview is she said that you will learn so much more about yourself than you can ever imagine. And that is so true. Like, parenting, to me, being a mom, has literally, it was like a mirror, like in my face, right? Exposing all the things about myself I didn't like, all the impatience, all, the self-sufficiency, all the pride, all the, just different types of idolatry. When I talk about like, stop focusing on how things will be better. Like, for me, it was finances. It was just like, okay, if this, give me this, then, things are going to be great. But it really taught me about contentment in the moment. It really showed me the things inside of me, character-wise, that I didn't like. And so I remember one of the things, I remember a barista asked me one day, he said, what's the hardest thing about motherhood? And I said, at first I was going to say lack of sleep, because my kids were toddlers. And I said, well, it's not really the lack of sleep. It's actually becoming the person who I can be proud of if my children said that I want to be like you. I said, that's the thing that's the hardest. Growing into being someone that my children can be proud of. Growing into someone who, if my kids said, I want to be like you, I wouldn't cringe. I said, that's the hardest thing. It's about changing myself. And it's not through my strength, it's through the strength of the Lord, but becoming a person that I can truly be proud of. I said, that is the hardest thing for me. That's the most difficult thing. And so when I saw her quote saying, you will learn so much more about yourself than you ever imagined, the good, the bad, the ugly, right? You're going to learn it. Your kids are going to it's like a spotlight on like the ugly pieces of you, spotlight. That's what motherhood does. But it's a beautiful spotlight, because that spotlight allows you to grow. And I thought that that was so cool, because if you're looking at yourself, feeling like you're had so many mom fails after mom fails after mom fails, or you feel like you're not good enough, those are just areas for you to lean into the Lord and grow. And that is a beautiful thing. I know for me, there was a time where I really struggled emotionally in single motherhood, and I just did not feel good enough to be the mom of my kids. I just felt like a failure. I felt like I couldn't get anything right. And really it was because I expected perfection from myself, and I wasn't perfect. So I felt like every day it was just a failure. Like, I didn't want to yell at my kids, but I yelled at my kids, fail. And so I just did not feel good enough. I did not feel qualified enough. I did not feel like, qualified to be their mom. And it was a very hard struggle for me emotionally. And then you couple it on with the verbal abuse that I dealt with from their dad before they walked out. Like my mind was just so just emotionally just torn apart. And it was very difficult for me. And so when I tell you that you learn more about yourself than you ever imagined, that healing journey that you go on, the healing journey that you begin to heal your traumas, the things that you've been running for, the ugly pieces of yourself, the character things about you that you wish you would change. All of those get exposed, but in a good way, because it allows you to heal. Like when I tell you, therapy has been so key for me in motherhood, because as these things come up, as these buried traumas come up, as these feelings of inadequacy come up, I'm able to talk things through with my therapist, take them to the Lord in prayer and heal. And as I heal, I'm no longer carrying the weight of the past. I'm no longer carrying the burdens of the past. And I'm able to move forward into who God has called me to be. I stopped looking at, not all the way stop, but, I've stopped focusing on what could have been or what should have been or how things didn't work out. But I'm better able to move forward because I have a better idea of who I am, and I have a better idea of who I want to be. So that way my children can be proud, right? But I can know that I'm being the person that God has created me to be. Because one of the things that I think we realize, we forget, is that we were born before our kids, right? I mean, it's an obvious thing, but we have a purpose and a plan for us in addition to motherhood. And so it's super important for us to be able to heal so we can be the moms that we need to be for our children, but also to be the women that we need to be on this earth to be able to do the purpose and plan that God has for us as an addition to motherhood. See, motherhood is our first ministry, but God has other stuff for us as well. And so we can't forget that. And then the more we heal, the more we can show up for our children, the more we can show up for ourselves, the more we can do the work that God has called us to be and continue to make a difference on this earth. And so I pray that these 7 things that I reviewed, that I shared with you today, that I got from the Kim Kardashian interview, I pray that this is helpful for you. I pray that it's encouraging to you. And I hope that when you see someone like her talking about how she cries herself to sleep sometimes, I hope you realize that you're not alone in this journey. Sometimes the trenches can be difficult, overwhelming, and emotional, but you're not the only one who's going through this journey, and you're well equipped to handle it. And so definitely check out my book, Navigating the Impossible, a survival guide for single moms from pregnancy through the first year of motherhood. It's really an amazing book designed to help single moms from pregnancy through that first year of motherhood, so that way they land well in their single motherhood journey. I talk about emotional health, mental health, building up your finances, and then the tangible things that you need to have in place on your single motherhood journey to be able to help you thrive and to help your children thrive as well. So definitely pick up the book on Amazon, Navigating the Impossible, a survival guide for single moms from pregnancy through the first year of motherhood. And make sure you like this video, love it, leave me a comment, subscribe, share this with a friend who needs some encouragement on her single motherhood journey as well. Have a good one.